Hey everyone, how's it going? Today is going to be a bit of a theory video along with an explanation video. Now in the Clone Wars we first saw Cut in Season 2, where we just shortly after the Battle of Geonosis saw his ship get shot down by the Separatists, and down with it he went. It was pretty rough. Since that moment he decided this life wasn't for him, and he ended up becoming a farmer on Saleucami, marrying a nice Twi'lek girl named Sue and adopting 2 kids. He was the only clone to abandon his duty for a life other than fighting for the Republic against Clankers. During this time as a farmer in Season 2, he ended up caring for Rex, and the two worked together to take out the droids trying to kill them. Settling their differences, Rex vowed to not tell the Republic that a clone had abandoned his duty and chosen a normal life. Clones don't get that privilege. As Cut continued to live his life after that episode on Saleucami in Season 2, we don't see him again, and we were all left to wonder if he actually executed Order 66 or not. How's he doing? Is he okay? Well, now we know that he didn't actually do it, but how and why didn't he? That's what we'll talk about in today's video, along with some other things. So the answer is pretty simple, but first I'm going to explain the fan theory that I think isn't accurate at all. This was something that during the watch party you guys were expressing like crazy, but I kind of want to debunk it, which we sort of did back then, but now more in depth. A lot of fans were believing and saying that he bumped his head in the ship crash and therefore damaged his inhibitor chip. This could be true, but it doesn't really make sense because many clones have banged themselves up and gotten into major accidents, but still ended up executing Order 66. Plus, if it was that hard of a hit to the head, they would lose a lot of bodily functions and cognitive functions, not just damage to the inhibitor chip, which was in their brain. The real reason that I think he never executed Order 66, which was another thing some of you were mentioning, was because he wasn't in communication with the Republic. He had no way of receiving Order 66 at all. If you remember in Revenge of the Sith, he had to issue every single clone commander the execution of Order 66. We see it all the way through the Order 66 scene in Revenge of the Sith with many different clones, Cody and so on, as well as Jedi Fallen Order, Clone Wars Season 7, and the very beginning of the first episode here of The Bad Batch. If the clones didn't hear the words execute Order 66, they wouldn't be activated. Now, this cleared up some stuff for me because I always felt like Palpatine would have had a fail-safe plan or gone one step further to press a button or something like that, which would issue the frequency without having to vocally express the order itself. You just push a button and they all immediately execute Order 66. Essentially, the chip activates, kind of like an on switch. So, with Cut being so far away and not ever hearing the order, as he was a farmer and didn't have any of those electronics or communicators with him, he let that stuff go many moons ago. So, that being said, if one of the Bad Batch or Omega were like, oh, you mean execute Order 66? As they were discussing Rex coming by the day before and mentioning the clones are being brainwashed by some chip in their heads, then yes, Cut would definitely have executed Order 66 by hearing it. We saw Master Bar do this in the Canon Vader comics, which I've also covered a few years ago, titled Darth Vader and the Jedi Who Re-Executes Order 66, which I will play a little clip of now. And I'll also link it down below for you, but you can find all the Canon Vader comics that I've covered in a Vader Canon comic playlist, all in hierarchical sequential order for you. As he flips off their helmets with the Force, he concurs that they are all young clones, just as he suspected, probably brought here after the Purge as expendable troops for this mission, or once like it. As he looks to the Inquisitors after they tell him that he's going to die regardless, he tells them,
"Once a Jedi, always a Jedi. Execute Order 66.
When Bar executes Order 66 in the last episode to the batch of very young and fresh clones, the Inquisitors are fired upon by every clone before them as the 10th brother is brutally killed, just like Ki-Adi was. Rest in peace. Bar tells them that the clones must obey their programming, no better than droids in a sense. As he leaps over them all and runs to the exit with Verla, the remaining Inquisitors are busy deflecting the onslaught. Master Bar, who's really just a Jedi Knight, tells Verla that she must leave the planet with as many allies as she can find.
So, anyone can activate Order 66 if they just say the full sentence, and it'll trigger the clone's inhibitor chip, making them do it. Now, if this were to happen to Cut, his whole personality would shift. we would have known as soon as we saw him in episode 1. He would leave Saleucami immediately as if he never knew them and band with his brothers in arms and hunt down the Jedi. That's just the genius of the chip that the Kaminoans implanted into their heads at the lab. Rex having visited Cut, we could assume that he might have done some operating on him possibly, or maybe Ahsoka used the Force to deactivate the chip inside of his head if she has that ability, if they can do that. And maybe Rex took the chip out of his head. Perhaps he and Ahsoka learned of another way to deactivate it that I haven't mentioned, something that's not as invasive as surgery, as we saw in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. And maybe this is how they will stop Order 66 from controlling the minds of their brothers. This could be Rex's mission with Ahsoka, to try and help the clones revolt against the Empire, and maybe even expose them, which we all know doesn't really happen, and won't happen, because we have the other films. Now, they could also be going around the galaxy and trying to band together everybody for a revolt, an uprising at Kamino. For those clones who do want to listen, we did learn that the Bad Batch don't have as much of a concentrated effect of the inhibitor chip on their brains because of their mutations and their uniqueness. Could this apply across the board to many different clones who perhaps have not a full mutation like the Bad Batch, but maybe a slighter, weaker one that allows them to make more of a cognitive choice when it comes to executing Order 66 or responding to reason as to why we shouldn't really be doing this, or why are we even doing this in the first place? Something is kind of weird. Make them think in the third person almost, and have them pull themselves out of it. This could be Rex's mission with Ahsoka, to try and help the clones revolt against the Empire, and maybe even expose them. They could be going around the galaxy and trying to band together everybody for a revolution, an uprising at Kamino, along with trying to find if Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi are alive and alright, because for now, they don't know. Ahsoka only felt a disturbance in the Force, but she still worries about Anakin, and her feelings betray her. She knows the truth. Now, the Empire might say that Anakin died fighting heroically or something like that, like they did in Legends, which would break Ahsoka and Rex's heart, as they don't want any Jedi to be alive, since they're brandished that the Jedi are miscreants and thugs. Let me know what you think of Cut not executing Order 66. What do you think would happen if someone walked up to him and simply said, "Yo, Cut, execute Order 66. All of a sudden, the man would change, I'm telling you. This is exactly what Master Bar did in the Vader comics, to basically buy himself some time as the clones would then attack the Inquisitors, because they didn't really know the difference. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please check me out on Star Wars Theory, keep the forums going, and of course check me out on Spotify. Let me know if you think Omega would execute Order 66 if she was given the order. That's going to be the next video's theory, so I will catch you then. Until the next one, remember, the Force will be with you, always.